Hello there, Applied English, and welcome to our new week of our class here, starting in day 10. You may notice in our lesson folder there is no attendance assignment. Because Schoology does allow me to keep track of what students do within Schoology, I don't necessarily need an attendance assignment for those of you tuning in virtually. What I do expect you to do still is to work through the entire lesson. So we'll pop into our lesson agenda here in just a moment, but right now you guys are watching our tour video, which will lead you through what our classroom is like. The hope with that is that you'll feel comfortable with our classroom as you come in for your first in-person lesson. You should know that students who are in person right now are getting this tour face-to-face. It's just kind of how it has to work. Lesson agendas look a little bit different as well. Objectives are the same. So our objectives today, first of all, to follow the routines of our classroom. I'm teaching a lot of those routines now. I'm also printing off a syllabus for every student too. So you'll get a syllabus in class, just one that you can hold on to in your binder. Our other objective today is to use new vocabulary words. That's another lesson video later on, along with an assignment. I've also added a line for in-person materials. So if you're tuning in virtually, you don't need to worry about this right now. But if my in-person students in class today will need their English binder and possibly 5 dividers and something to write with just as we move into vocab later. Right now, you guys are watching me as I lead you through a tour of room 201. We're also going to discuss some routines along the way. I hope you enjoy the tour. As you head down the hallway to room 201, one of the things you'll likely notice are the pennants in my windows. You see the Milwaukee Wave, St. Louis Blues, Green Bay Packers, Milwaukee Bucks, St. Louis Cardinals, and my alma mater, Southern Illinois University Carbondale. I am from St. Louis, Missouri. That's where the Southern Illinois and St. Louis stuff comes from. But I do love some of the teams that I've gotten to adopt just based on moving to Wisconsin as well. So I am a St. Louisan at heart, but I do love that I get a chance to root on the Packers and the Bucks and the Wave as well. Let's head towards my door. Welcome to the door area. Oftentimes you'll see me just right before class waiting by this black patch of paint right here. It's a good spot for me to greet you. You should notice some of the signage on my door as well. So that's where you can find my name and room number. But right below that, I've posted my daily schedule as well. Notice help time before and after school. I've also posted where you can find me at any given time. For the most part, I spend the majority of my day in room 201. But notice during my prep period, whether it's third or fourth hour, I could be subbing at that time as well if I'm hard to find. At the very bottom, notice that I do have a 1-hour virtual help time in Microsoft Teams every night. I had to put it that late because of my daughter's bedtimes. On the other side, I've also put what I'm currently reading. Right now I'm reading The Bean Trees by Barbara Kingsolver. I'm reading through it slowly because virtual teaching has been a beast, but I am enjoying the book so far. Let's walk into the room. As you walk into the classroom, I hope the first thing that catches your eye is our bulletin board here, along with our school's theme, Do You Know the Answer? This is the most creative I've ever gotten with a bulletin board, so don't judge. But I did want to give you guys just a chance to see what the Bible says about maybe some key questions that you're asking in your life right now. Some common questions that I think every teenager has to deal with, just like I dealt with as a teenager. Each of these is flippable. So let's say I really want to know, maybe I'm having a really tough day and I really just want to know if I'm loved or not. I go up to the question, am I loved? Flip it, and there's the answer, right? God shows his love for us, and that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, Romans 5:8. So we're loved by God. We're also loved by our brothers and sisters in Christ, or I'm loved by my brothers and sisters in Christ. All people will know that we are Christ's disciples if we have love for one another. That's just one of 7 questions that I put here. I hope you have some fun just seeking out those answers for yourself. Please know that these are conversation starters too. If you're really, really struggling with one of these questions, feel free to ask me, and I'm happy to have that conversation with you too. Speaking of Jesus as well, we also have our prayer board right next to it. You'll notice that we've got a space for prayer requests by hour, so 1st, 3rd, and 7th on the left-hand side, 2nd, 6th, and 8th on the right-hand side. Since I only get to see each individual student once per week, we're just going to keep a running total of prayer requests in all of my classes. We'll check them off as they get answered. We'll see how many answered prayers we can get this semester. Along the front wall, you'll also notice my recycling bin and trash can pretty much stay here. They have a home right here, so if you ever need to throw something away or recycle it, that's right there. We'll continue on down the line in just a moment. Actually, before we go down the line, I want to show the flip side of the door, just a few things that are relevant for you. For one, this is where I'm housing my clipboard. So if you ever need to check in, there we go, check in before school or after school for help, this is where I house the clipboard, just right on this screw right here. It is right next to the hand sanitizer dispenser. Now, my wife is a nurse, and she tested this, and she told me that the ideal number of pumps with this kind of sanitizer is 3. So she said 1 pump is not going to cover your hands well enough. Make sure you're getting a nice coat if you're using it. This is my closet. It is guarded by my knight, so you do not need to go in there. For the most part, I keep it locked, but really all it houses are decorations, some of my other personal belongings, things that we don't necessarily need in class on a regular basis. Now we'll continue down the line. As we move down the wall, we get kind of our technology center for the classroom. First of all, this little bin is just where I house my walkie-talkie, my radio I should call it, as well as journals for writing workshops. So first hour, house for your journal, if you want to keep yours in the classroom, right there. Second hour, yours is right below that. Gives us a space where you can pull those out on a regular basis, write in them, and not have to worry about taking them with you. Yes, I do have a cart of Chromebooks, or technically they're netbooks, not even Chromebooks, but that's okay. I have not tested them at all this summer. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to use them, so I'll be working with them in my writing workshop class, so you guys will get to help me test them out this week, just to make sure they're working well. I don't plan on using them a ton in class because you guys are on so many devices outside of school on your virtual days. But if we ever do need them in the classroom, I'm hoping to get them back into working order. And then there's the screen. I do a lot of teaching from the screen, so I want to back up here, just kind of walk you through that routine of lesson agendas. These agendas are essentially the same as what you guys did in virtual learning, and they're pretty much followable for virtual learners as well. There might just be a few changes as from what you're used to. This is an applied English one, so writing workshop, yours is similar. Everything above that top line is yours. So you notice the date. This is tomorrow's lesson, or today's lesson, I should say. So the objectives, and for applied English, the materials are all on you to start. So as soon as you come into the classroom, I want you to read those 2 objectives. Today's is to follow our routines, as I'm teaching now. Second one is to use new vocab words in writing. We'll practice that later this lesson. And then applied English, I also want to make sure that you guys are ready with materials too. I realize that not everyone's going to have a binder yet, but I want to start putting that in your ear to make sure that you get one ready for the next time you're in class, and a writing utensil today. Everything below that first dotted line are activities that I will lead you through, or activities that you'll do virtually. Right now, my virtual learners are watching this video online. You're watching me as I lead you through a tour of this classroom. We're also discussing routines like this as we go. And then the activities continue. We're going to work through our next set of short story vocab, and if time allows, we'll start reading The Man in class as well. Those same activities are available online for students to do. And then at the end of class, we'll talk about what's upcoming as well. In our next lesson in class, as well as online and applied, it'll be symbolism, some notes, and an activity there. And we'll continue reading and discussing The Man. Writing workshop, you essentially have the same exact thing on this. The only difference is that instead of materials on a regular basis, I'm giving you a journal prompt. So the first thing that you can do as soon as you come into the classroom is start writing in your journal. With the 88-minute period, we should have significant time to write and share what we write on a daily basis. As we continue on the front wall, we get to my desk. Now, my desk does get messy from time to time. There's a lot of workspace for me over there, but there are a few things that you should know are available for you. For one, a 3-hole punch, if you ever need to use it. One thing that I need to go out and find, because there's a shortage of them right now, are like Clorox wipes, sanitizing wipes. So I'll try to keep these things sanitary, but 3-hole punch if you ever need it, as well as some other tools, tape, staplers, permanent markers, a ruler, half sheets of paper. Those are all available for the using as well. Just make sure you clean it after you use it for cleanliness purposes. These black mailboxes are also where I want you to submit work that's done in class. I did this in years before, so it doesn't go odds, evens. It does go first, second, third, fourth. I keep extra discipline forms there. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. And then anything that doesn't have a name on it, I house right there to be claimed as well. So this is where you'll submit work that's done in class. Anything on paper can be turned in there in order for me to read and grade, and then I'll submit it back to you when I see you in class next, obviously. Pretty much everything else behind my desk is mine. I can show you what's going on here, but For the most part, it's stuff that I'm working on. As you can see, lots of sticky notes, things that I'm working on right now. Extra supplies for me. I keep some student artwork. Maybe you saw the cards as well right under my screen. I am a words of affirmation person, so if you make me something or if you write me something, I'll usually keep it forever and come back to it when I'm not feeling the greatest. I do have other things that I've gotten from students at the top there, as well as my contact information. So if you ever need a quick look at my email address or my school phone number or my YouTube handle, those are all there right above my head. Back here is some other stuff too. That's Barry B. Benson, our class mascot. He's wearing a bunch of stuff, including my Bucks hat. That's now his Bucks hat. It doesn't really fit me very well. And then just more workspace for me. You should know, this purple mailbox here is where I'll be housing extra documents. So extra credit bookmarks for reading in the top, writing workshop handouts, writing workshop assignments, applied handouts, applied assignments, and then extra lined paper in the bottom. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, I do want you to ask me first before you grab anything out of that, just to make sure that nothing's getting contaminated. We'll be safe about that too. That's pretty much it for my desk. You don't really need to be back here, so to speak. Once again, those things on the front of my desk are there for your use. Let's talk about the layout of the classroom a little bit here, because it's definitely different. You may have noticed that all of our desks are facing the window in our classroom. I set up 15 desks because my largest class, my largest section for now will have 14 students. Most of my sections have fewer than 11, so for the most part we can fill those back 2 rows. But I wanted all the desks to face the windows in this classroom so that I can continue using my whiteboard for teaching as well as our screen. This kind of allows you to swivel from side to side, and it gives me lots of teaching space because I like to walk quite a bit as I'm teaching in this space right here. I will say this again. In my smaller classes, if you can limit yourselves to those back 2 rows, it gives me more space to work with in the front, and it gives me more space where I can potentially not wear my mask as I'm teaching. That allows you guys to hear me a little bit better, allows me to smile, and allows you to know when I'm just messing around with you in class. I would love to be able to do that, so if you guys could sit in the back rows, that'll be great. I think there are 2 sections that are too big for that, so we'll look at that in a little bit here. As far as my teaching space goes, you'll notice that there are 5 desks with do not use stickers on them. I will fight every temptation to sit on those as I'm teaching. But I do have my designated sitting spot on the heater right here, along with some of my teaching tools. For one, this is where I'm going to house my Bible and probably my journal as well. It's on my desk right now. Just if I need to write something down for myself in class, I always keep a notebook on hand. And if we ever want to draw a biblical connection, I'm probably going to house my Bible here too. This here is my teaching stick. It actually belongs to the art department, but they left it in my classroom over the weekend, or over the summer, because they were working on the mural in here, which is pretty awesome. Just so I can reach to the whiteboard a lot better without necessarily getting all up in your grills as I'm teaching. So it gives me an ability to point at whatever I need to on the whiteboard. We'll talk about that whiteboard in just a little bit. I hope you noticed in our last video this really pretty banner that streams all the way across this wall, this side wall of the classroom. I suppose it's a back wall now that I've turned our desk towards the windows. These book covers are a mix of things for me. First of all, this was the first art project my wife and I did in order to decorate my classroom when I got it 7 years ago. It's crazy to think that it's been that long. But these book covers are a mix of things. Some of them are some of my favorite books, like Fences is my favorite play. I love Things Fall Apart. It's one of my favorite books. Some of these are books that I teach, like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in Applied English. Used to teach The Crucible in English 2. Used to teach Frankenstein in AP Literature. Teach Amazing Spider-Man in Applied English. Some of them are iconic book covers, like The Great Gatsby. It's one of the most famous book covers ever made. And some of them are just really cool book covers, in my opinion. I really like this cover for To Kill a Mockingbird with the moon in the background. Speak is a wonderful book cover, using the symbolism of that tree. Jurassic Park is iconic and one of my favorite books. This is my favorite alternate cover for The Hobbit. It just goes on and on. I can nerd out about books and book covers all day if I wanted to. But I hope that this livens up the classroom for you and gets some conversations going too. Speaking of books, let's talk about this back wall a little bit here. Some of the back wall is built, I suppose it's a side wall now, but some of this wall is built for decoration. Things like Martin Luther with his admiral's shirt hanging out here. Some really cool German text that Mr. Forkey found when they were clearing out the library a couple of years ago. There's Ganduck the Grey. Yeah, I'm a nerd, whatever. But I also do have a whole system of books that are available for you to borrow if you like, or if you just need something to read in the classroom while there's some downtime, they are available for you. This first bookshelf over here is mostly fiction, mostly contemporary fiction. All of my Michael Crichton is in the top. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe series is in the top. There's some other series fiction. I've got the whole Hunger Games series there. Some other pieces of series fiction in there, some other novels. It's mostly young adult and contemporary stuff in the tall bookshelf. If I come across, we'll look at the board in a little bit. If I come across the other bookshelf, this is more classics. So a lot of classic American literature in this one. We got some multi-ethnic literature here. American Born Chinese is a graphic novel, one of my favorite graphic novels. There's some Christian literature in the very bottom there. I do have a set of, I think it's 15 dictionaries right here that we can use as a class if you like. Some other random reference books. There's some autobiographies in the bottom here, some historical fiction. And then my oldest texts are on the right-hand side over here. So there's some mythology, some classics, some early British literature. I also keep my poetry and plays on this side as well. If you do borrow a book from me, there's this bin here for you to return it to. I will ask you to kindly return any book that you borrow from me into the bin, just so I know that I need to sanitize it before I put it back on the shelf. I'd like to remind you that you can earn extra credit for reading books independently outside of class. It's 10 points for the first book every 6 weeks, an additional 3 points for every additional book from there. So if you read 3 books by the end of this grading period, I know that's coming up quickly here, that is 10, 13, 16 extra credit points that get tacked on to points that you may have missed, or to assignments where you lost points earlier in the semester. Next up on our tour is the back whiteboard. Now this one, it might be a little bit lengthier just because there's a lot to take in right here. This is where I'll do a lot of my instruction and reminders. For one, on the far left-hand side, you'll see 3 things. At the very top, there's a sample of the MLA heading. So it's always student name first. I made up a student named Duncan J. Donut. Teacher name comes second, so I am his teacher. Yeah, Duncan's a guy's name, so Mr. Hantak is the teacher there. The course name, whether it's Writing Workshop or Applied English, whichever you are in. And then the date. I did this at the very beginning of the school year, so I put August 25th, 2020. Obviously, you'll put the current date as your date if you're ever writing a paper. I've also put reminders for both classes there. Applied English in green, Writing Workshop in purple. Applied English, notice that really the only thing on your radar homework-wise right now is to get your English binder. Make sure that's ready for the next time you're in class. And to complete any missing work that I've handed to you. If you're in class, you're getting that missing work right now. If you are not in class right now, you'll get it in your next lesson. So I'll give you paper copies of anything you may have missed from the first couple weeks. Writing Workshop, same is true for you with missing work, but assignment-wise, you guys are working on your college application essays. I have moved that deadline to the end of next Monday, just because the process of giving you guys feedback and earlier work has been slow for me. That's my bad, but I want to accommodate a bit for you. I left myself some teaching space in case I need it in my lesson today, right here. From there, I've noticed that I've written a little bit just to walk through a normal lesson. I do want to walk through this routine right now, just so you guys are clear on what a normal lesson might look like. This is especially true for Applied English. Writing Workshop, yours will feel a little bit different from this. In a normal Applied English lesson, every day we'll start off with a 5 to 10 minute check-in. That gives me a chance to take attendance and check in on you. It also gives us some time to pray as a class, ask questions about our last virtual lesson, just in general make sure that we're ready for new content, rather than just me leaving you in the dust with virtual lessons. After 5 to 10 minutes of checking in, making sure that we're good, making sure that we're clear, we move on to the next part of the lesson. Now, I am very much a mini lesson teacher, so probably the good majority of our Applied English lessons are going to feel like this. You'll have a 30 to 40 minute mini lesson and activity, so I'll teach you one concept. It could be this tour, for instance. It could be a vocab activity or a grammar activity. Maybe we read a story in that time frame. It's just one piece of the lesson, right? So we'll have a first mini lesson and activity. 40 minutes feels long for that. I probably won't go that long, but I'm just giving myself a range. A brain break. Brain breaks are good for us just to recharge after strenuous work on our brains before we move on to something new. I've actually got a whole bucket of brain break activities that I'll have a different student choose from every day. They are randomized, so you just got to do what the card says. After our brain break, we'll do another mini lesson and activity. This is if we're learning 2 things in a day, like today. So, like in today's lesson, it's tour first. We'll do a brain break after this tour. And then our second activity is going to be new vocabulary, another 30 to 40 minutes. What that leaves us at the end of the hour is another 5 to 10 minutes to check out. What that basically means is we'll preview the next lesson, like it says on our agenda. We'll talk reminders. We'll make sure we're good on deadlines, make sure that work is turned in, etc. 10 minutes feels long for that, but again, I'm giving myself a range. The other way that might shake out in applied English, instead of 2 mini lessons, it might be a larger lesson first. So if I need to do quite a bit of teaching, maybe we have a lot of notes to cover, or if we need to read through an entire section of text, we might do that first. We'll take our brain break, and then we have a larger activity for the second part of the hour. So for instance, let's say we spend the first 30 to 40 minutes reading a story, we take our break, and then once we get back from that break, that larger activity might be a written reflection, like a paragraph or a short essay on that story. That's just an example. That's not going to be the majority of our lessons, but please note that that is an option for me. Writing workshop, yours is a little bit different. Instead of checking in, you guys have journaling. I'll still take attendance during journaling, and we'll pray after journaling. We'll still take questions and stuff as well. But then the rest of your lessons are going to be pretty flexible. There are going to be some days where we have 2 mini lessons. There'll be some days where we just need lots of time to write. So I'll sprinkle in a brain break every day at some point, but I'm going to be rather flexible when it comes to writing workshops specifically. At the end of class, we're still going to check out by previewing the next lesson, making sure work's turned in, giving reminders, etc. The last thing on the whiteboard is the daily schedule. This is partially for me and partially for you. It's going to take us some time to memorize when classes begin and end. So you'll notice I put it by block. So block 1, whether it's first or second hour, odd day or even day, is from 8 to 9:28. Chapel or advisory from 9:33 to 10:03. Block 2, so whether it's third or fourth hour, that's the one that I have off, 10:08 to 11:36. I put first lunch on there because that's my schedule. I realize writing workshop kids, you probably have something different from this, so don't necessarily base your schedule off of mine here, but I've got first lunch every day. Then I teach applied English all afternoon. So block 3, whether it's 5th or 6th hour, 12:16 to 1:47, and then block 4, whether it's 7th or 8th, from 1:52 to 3:20. The last things to show on our tour are just some of these posters on the back wall. On the left-hand side, I've got some posters specific to writing. So writing workshop especially, we've got the writing process poster there as a reminder for you. This is largely what I want you to master this semester. So again, we focused on pre-writing. That's our big focus with the college application essay, making sure you're well-planned before you draft, before you edit, before you publish. We'll work through drafting. Obviously, you guys are drafting your college application essays now. Editing comes next later on this week, and then publishing by the end of next Monday. But I've also put a couple of things regarding plagiarism here as well. So how to paraphrase information in a text is on this Turnitin one right here. Then right next to that is just some warnings about plagiarism and how to avoid it on that next one. So those are for you to look at if you need. I don't do a lot of teaching from these, but I want to make sure those resources are available to you. The more important poster on this back wall is this one right here. He is making all things new. I chose this to be our classroom theme, our scriptural theme for this year. In years before, I used planted in good soil, and along this bookshelf here, I had 3 African violet plants. One was planted in rocks, one was planted in soil with another plant, with a thistle specifically, and one was planted in good soil, and obviously the one that was planted in good soil is the only one that survived. It's all a metaphor for trusting in God, right? If we fully put our trust in God uninhibited, we grow and we thrive and we flourish. He is making all things new comes from Revelation 21. I just want to look at some of the passage there. I'll summarize a little bit. So John sees new heaven and new earth. This is in Revelation. So God is showing him his vision of what the end of times looks like and new creation where God makes everything right again. It says this further on, starting in verse 3. I heard a loud voice from the throne, saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain, for the former things have passed away. He who is seated on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. Also, he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to me, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To the thirsty I will give from the spring of water of life without payment. We see here that God's vision for things in the end of days is to make all things new once again. It's to reverse the curse. It's to take away every form of death and pain and suffering, and to make things new, to make things paradise once again, like it was in the Garden of Eden. We're living in a broken world, and we know that more than ever this year, in the midst of pandemics and racial unrest and violence and hatred and racism and this nasty election season that we're looking at too. We have to remember that in the midst of all these things, first of all, that God is doing something in the midst of all these bad things, that he is working these things for our good. We also have to remember that a day is coming when he's going to wipe all that stuff away anyways. And that's why we put our hope and our faith and our trust in him. I hope you enjoyed this tour. I love you guys. I hope you feel more comfortable with using our classroom. We're going to move on to the next part of our lesson.